Good evening or good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're having a wonderful Friday. It is News from the Pew, where we take news from around the interwebs and distill it to make it slightly less frightening. I'm your host, Rick Barrett. You can find me at thearmedcatholic.com, first class firearm training with a foundation of Catholic tradition because the two are compatible. Check it out. I hope you do. We are also joined, as always, and do not worry, Waz will be with us. He is wheeling and dealing and doing important things, and he will join us eventually. But in the meantime, we have the great Jonathan Arrington of Eat Dominum. I believe that's the name of the website. Did I say that even somewhat correct, John? Or
close enough?
I mean, for me, it's close enough. But check it out. The link in the description is below. I want you to check that out and take a look at it. And of course, as always, we have the godfather of Catholic YouTube, Steve Cunningham, who has only released 17 videos today. So we'll get this. We'll make this show a little shorter so we can get back to get to his usual 30. Because I mean, if he's not doing that, what else is he good for? So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right to it. This week has been a very interesting week as far as conservative media moving back in regards to coverage with Donald Trump, coverage of Andrew Tate, and Joey B just continuing to, shuffle around the White House eating ice cream and apparently drinking coffee now, if you believe his latest ad. But I wouldn't give, it's got to be decaf. You can't give that guy much. Anyway, Donald Trump was handed one of his 400,000th indictment this week. And I believe it was in Washington, D.C. So you have New York. Now you have D.C. Georgia is coming up, and the commissioner county judge, sheriff, whatever you want to call him in Georgia, is promising a perp walk and a photo. So we'll see how that goes. But let's take a look at the 635 years that apparently Trump is, and that's really on this indictment just from Washington, D.C. But if you haven't seen it, let's get you caught up.
Heard about the indictment. I had a long conversation with a friend of mine, Ryan Riley, and I told him how proud I felt to be an American at that moment.
Or at least he knows he's
much
free.
in the way that I did when I learned that our military had killed Osama bin Laden. I just felt incredibly proud.
These two seem comparable to you?
Incredibly proud to have been.
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but why that comparison in particular?
I believe they're comparable.
In what way?
Absolutely. Osama bin Laden was a terrorist who committed a horrific act against American people and against our republic. And I believe that Donald Trump is a terrorist who committed horrific acts against the American people.
You can imagine that is a very eyebrow-raising statement, to say the least, the notion of Osama bin Laden in comparison to Donald Trump. It likely speaks to just how deeply you have been concerned and have felt about all of this. But are you concerned that statements like that, or the rhetoric surrounding what his role has been, is going to cloud people's view of this indictment as a fair process?
I think that the only person or people whose view matters with regards to this indictment are the jurors who will eventually be sat and listen to the facts and ultimately make a judgment as to whether or not Donald Trump is guilty of the charges that Jack Smith and the Department of Justice.
Reading this indictment that you wish you had access to when you made the case to impeach Donald Trump?
We had a couple weeks to put that case together, and we had a pretty compelling case because Donald Trump, in plain sight, said this was going to be a wild day and fired up that mob. But the number of people that told the special counsel that Donald Trump and the people around him knew that what they were saying was false, that fires me up more than anything, is that this also feels a bit like a grift. It's not about anyone but Donald Trump. And the tweet today that, he's getting arrested so others don't have to get arrested. This is entirely about Donald Trump wanting to hold on to power in an election that he got smoked in, and then wanting to use his campaign to raise money for his legal fees. This
in charge with. So there's 4 crimes here. 3 are crimes of conspiracy. 1 is a crime that the government says actually took place. What is a conspiracy? A conspiracy is an agreement by 2 or more people to achieve a criminal end, to commit a crime. But because they did not succeed in committing the crime, the charge is conspiracy, the agreement. The idea of conspirators meeting in a dark room with a bare light bulb over them and making notes on their conspiracy is just from Hollywood. In reality, conspirators don't always meet together. They don't even always know each other. They just have a common purpose and feed common information to them. And then at least one of them takes at least one step in furtherance of the conspiracy. I myself, when I was on the bench, as a legal scholar, as a professor of law, as a commentator on Fox News, have argued against conspiracy crimes. I think they're profoundly unconstitutional because they punish thought. The most famous, simple attack on conspiracy is from Clarence Darrow summing up to a jury. Now, this is 150 years ago, so the dollar figures are quite different. He says to the jury, if a boy steals a dime, he's not going to go to the penitentiary. A small fine will do. But if 2 boys conspire, agree to steal a dime, and then don't steal it, they are candidates for the penitentiary. What kind of a country does this? He asks the jury. One of the jurors shouts back, ours. At that point, he knew he was going to get an acquittal. But he's quite correct, because the conspirators are those who agreed to commit a crime, but for a variety of reasons didn't succeed in committing it. So they're basically being punished for their agreements, for their thoughts. That's 3 of the charges against Donald Trump. What are they? The first is conspiracy to defraud the United States, to deny the United States the benefit of its presidential election. The second is conspiracy to obstruct a congressional function, that is an agreement intended, if it had carried out, to prevent the Congress from counting the electoral votes. The third is a conspiracy against the right to vote. That is a conspiracy against all the voters in the states that the Trump people had targeted: Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. The fourth charge against him is obstruction of justice, actually preventing the counting of the votes, which, because of the mob on the floor of the House of Representatives, where the House and the Senate were meeting in joint session, presided over by the Vice President, Mike Pence, they were forced to flee the Capitol building. So that is conspiracy as well as an accomplished crime, obstructing a governmental function. Of course, the governmental function was eventually performed later that night. After the building had been cleared, the Congress came back into the House chamber. They met, they counted the electoral votes. Mike Pence did the actual counting, and the vote on the floor was to accept the election of Joe Biden. At that point, he was, for the first time, officially, legally, and constitutionally proclaimed the president-elect of the United States. So why does the government charge a variety of different crimes, and why these thought crimes? Well, the thought crimes are easier to prove because the government does not have to prove harm. Normally, the government has to prove harm. Like in the obstruction charge, the harm is that members of Congress were fearful of their own safety. So they were actually harmed. The government's process was delayed. It took more time and cost more money to count the ballots. That's the harm there. But conspiracy charges do not require the government to prove harm. It only needs to prove the agreement and at least one step taken in furtherance of the agreement by at least one of the conspirators.
All right. Now that you've imbibed all of that, to give yourself an opinion on that. I'll just throw one last thing in here. It's from the Washington Post, and I think it's amazing. So let's say Trump does go to prison. Not that he will, and I have a thought on that in a moment. He gets to keep his Secret Service detail in prison. He can elect to keep it. So just the thought of Trump walking about the yard with 6 guys with MP5s, he becomes pretty much kingpin. He will run that
You
prison.
joke about him buying the prison.
I mean, he would essentially run it anyway with Secret Service detail, with fully automatic firearms while he's sitting in like the best corner. So he's kind of like, send me, it's going to be great. But it's completely ridiculous. Flaws, I'll throw it to you first. If this guy's such a threat, why didn't they put him in prison? Why did they allow him to walk? Right? There are people who have been charged with less crimes, and they remand them. They keep them in prison until the trial because they're such a threat. This guy is being charged with literally inciting an insurrection to overthrow the government. Yet they're like, all right, man, just come on in, appear in court, and you're on your way.
It's a good question. If we are going to take the good to be with you guys again, of course. So I'll give 2 theories depending on what people want to accept. If we're going to take this as theatrics, that's most people take it as. Of course, this is all theatrics. He's playing for the same team. That's why some people have that theory. It's all a game, and it's all TV. Trying to get ratings, trying to get us to divide even more. You have the right versus the left, but they're on the same team. But he's part of the uniparty. People say, his 4 years, the way he governed the 4 years, the deep state got even more stronger. The national debt got worse. Fauci was given unlimited powers. So that's one of the theories that people have. Now, if we're gonna go the other route and say he's actually the enemy of the deep state and he's really trying to fight for America, which some people will hold on to believe. I think that Donald Trump is a bigger asset to the deep state out of prison and in the election ballot than in prison in a way. The reason is because if you could increase his chances with his base and you could paint him as the person that is standing in the way against the deep state, and if we get rid of him, they're going to come after all of us. He's the one standing in the way. He's taking a bullet for all of us, right? That's what they say. If this is how you're coming at it, then you want the base, you want him to be the nominee because he's easier to defeat in the general election. And this is how the left wants to play it. And this is how the Democrats want to play it. Because if you're running Joe Biden, and with his approval ratings and his age and all of the things that the last 3 years that he's done, and all of the images and videos that you could put together to get the independents to go against you, you're going to need a even more pulverizing, more divided president like Donald Trump is to go against Joe Biden so they could go ahead and run the same election that they did. If you ran someone, for example, like DeSantis or Vivek, who I just saw him in the he's going in podcasts, he's going in CNN, he's going in the lion's den, taking hard questions, and I commend him for that. If you're going to want someone like that the independents like, that they don't bring the sort of baggage that Trump brings with him. There's a chance that Joe Biden might lose in that sense, because we could talk about election interference and all that. They can only do so much. If you have a majority of independents and all the Republicans and all the conservatives going all at once, and then you have this national ballot harvesting that they would do, that I think McConnell said he wanted to do, and the other Mick Daniels and Mick Chicken. If you put all that together, it's harder for the Dems. Then they're going to have to bow Biden out and put Newsom in, because it's going to be a little bit it'll be DeSantis versus Newsom, I think, is going to be the future. But as of right now, the left wants Donald Trump to be the nominee, and they know that the more indictments that they have, the more strengthens his case. But in the general election, it hurts the Republicans. It hurts the MAGA community, because he's just so unliked by all the Democrats and a lot of the independents. And I don't think his base is enough to push that election. And if we're taking this at face value, let's say this: Donald Trump was one of the only presidents that literally shut off the money flow from the reserve as far as the industrial complex, because after the Cold War, the U.S. was the only one standing. We became the kingpins of the whole world. They talk about the kingpins of we literally got to do whatever we wanted. Communism was dead. Europe was in decline. We had all the money and we had all the military power. And war was our greatest asset. And under every president, we've gone to war. Either we've gone to war or we funded a proxy war, like we see in Ukraine and Russia now. And Donald Trump was the only president when they came after, Bolton came after, and Milley said, let's attack Iran. He said, no, there's no reason for us to do so. They bombed a Humvee. He said, but they didn't kill anybody, so there's no casualties. So let's. So they were going broke. They were going broke for 4 years because there was nothing to fight. Yeah, they did some drone bombings and stuff like that, but as far as full on war, he stopped that from happening. So that's one of the reasons why they wanted him out. If we're going to take everything at face value, of course. So this is why he's the biggest enemy. But at the same time, the intelligence community, they could use him as the greatest assets while him being the greatest enemy at the same time.
Excellent way to start off the program. So, John, taking that into account and thinking about the fact that, it's very interesting that every time something leaks about the Bidens, whether it's Hunter's plea deal falling apart or any of these other things, testimony in Congress, which is still ridiculous, but it reveals more and more. Something just happens to drop on President Trump, and they kind of use that as a distraction. So the fact that on the one side, what Fawaz just talked about, him being a distraction for the deep state, the rallying cry for conservatives to kind of keep everything in line, because if he's there, then, there's still hope or whatever the case may be. From your perspective on this absolute aggressive exertion of authority and power by the deep state on an individual, like or hate Trump, this is still the guy's getting railroaded. And it's something we've never seen before, and it is absolutely a cry and a warning to how far out of scale we are.
Yeah. I guess I would just repeat more or less what Fawaz said, and maybe add two other thoughts, considerations that have come to me just watching this. It seems almost like a poorly done show. Although it's, I think it's still better than the last few years of Hollywood and Amazon shows or Netflix shows. I mean, they seem to be getting worse and worse. So there's got to be some sort of drama. It's almost like, you don't even have to be red pilled anymore. As long as you're, pink pilled, you're halfway to being red pilled. You know that so much of this is a joke. The political, I guess it looks like a fake game show of sorts. I feel like so many more people who before just trusted the MSM narrative don't now. So, my thought for the last year and a half or two has been that all of this push to try to go get Trump is a way to actually bring eyes on politics. Because I think more than ever, I'm not going to make a guess. I could say half or more. I don't really know, but a whole lot more people than ever before, I think, are convinced that the way politics plays out in America right now is just one big game. It's not some sort of fair fight. It's not going to have a huge effect on the way things are done. You don't have to watch Corbett to kind of have that general feeling. You can find out kind of why that's the case and how they've made that the case. But you don't have to be into all the sorts of alternative media that we are into to basically have a sense this is going on. So I think it's just a way for them to get eyes back on their show. You know, they need ratings of some sort. They got to keep people somewhat interested in what's going on. So I think it's just kind of partially, at least, some sort of game in that regard to bring eyes back onto politics and politicians. Even I don't think they care really which side it's on, because both sides are going to share their opinion about the matter, right? So they just gives them a chance to get on the screen and have some sort of self-worth. So that's one thought that came to me. The other, though, just again, kind of using the distinction that Fawaz gave, which I think is good, taking it at face value, let's just say it is more or less as it seems to be. Okay. In that case, I think that whoever's pushing for this would hate Trump. He's not super intelligent in many aspects of modern day politics. I think he was good at making money, losing money as well. You know, he has some skills, but he's not particularly gifted intellectually in a lot of other areas. You know, he's annoying. He is brash and narcissistic. Okay, but you got to think too, like what is, or maybe there are a few. What is some sort of main virtue, or at least in some sense of the word, strength? You know, the root of the word virtue in Latin, virtus. What's some sort of virtue he has and displayed over the last 8-10 years or so that might make the modern industrial pharmaco-military industrial complex nervous? And I think it's just the fact that he didn't want to make America hated all around the world, and especially I think other countries that have some sort of leader that has any sort of backbone, that they don't like limp-wristed presidents. And we've had a lot of limp-wristed presidents. I don't care how, Bush W spoke. I mean, he struck me as really effeminate. We don't think we have to get on to Clinton and Obama, how effeminate, and Biden. These people are whipped. You know, just use modern term. They're whipped. I mean, Trump is beholden to certain interests, and yes, he's probably his own pride gets the better of him. But I think he had some sort of manliness that scares these people. Like it suggests something, even if it's not pointing back at himself as the paradigm, the model of virtue. It suggests something that's missing in so many other people who are involved in modern day politics. I don't think they want him around as kind of this comparison. Like, oh, look at the way he's acting, So I don't know. That's my thought, is that there are a few things, a few virtues of some sort that Trump displayed that kind of make the truly bad guys nervous.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And I think both points are very good, especially talking about the fact that he's not brilliant, but he's just, I guess the term is socially intelligent. Some would say emotionally intelligent, but he knows how to read the room and he knows how to speak publicly. And
great marketer.
Yeah, and in an age where people are becoming more and more recluse and behind screens and less sociable, just his presence is very endearing to a lot of people, because he can, love or hate Bill Clinton. He did the same thing. He could relate to anybody in a room. He was fantastic at that, mostly because he was looking for underage girls. But the fact of the matter,
definition is.
But he was still good at it. With that being said, Steve, I'm pretty sure this is just distractions for America's next top emperor.
Ladies and gentlemen, he already spoke for me. Well, just to speak on him a little bit, here's the judge that's going to be on it, because you need a villain in this TV series.
Yep.
Season 2 of America's Next Top President. He's gone up in polls since he's been arraigned. Personally, I think Vivek is kissing some tail to be the VP guy. So only thing I can think of, Vivek is always out there, backing him up. Good on him for doing it, but he's a smart dude. I guarantee it's because he's trying to get to there. Yeah, this is a major, super duper top duper distraction. What's not being said right now? Let me pull it on a couple of videos right here. I put it on Clown Planet.
Just more of your friends, neighbors, loved ones are testing positive for COVID, you're not alone. According to the CDC, COVID-19 hospitalizations are up 12% from last week.
Bear with me.
And while we're nowhere near any previous levels,
I got to get
it's still raising concerns.
for all this.
Joining us now with more is Dr. Kavita Patel, who served as a White House policy director in the Obama administration. She is an MSNBC medical contributor. Dr. Patel, it's always great seeing you.
Forget about her. Here's replacing Biden, or not Biden.
When you
Fauci.
go out, you don't need to wear one when you're at home. Masks in young people going to school over the age of 6. All the things we've been talking about. Mask wearing, hand hygiene, and social distancing. Masks have contributed to the control of this pandemic in other communities. Even mask wearing, except when you're eating, you can prevent it with very good masks. The 3 basic.
I get the point. She's the new Fauci coming in.
January when I was thrown in the jail cell, the media.
I didn't need him. My apologies. I hit the wrong button. We get that. We'll get to the tater later.
Boo.
My apologies for being from the state of North Carolina right now. This is former Mandy Cohen of North Kakalaki. She was she was a thorn in my side for the last couple of years. Just insanity. Every time I turn on the local news, she's now the director of CDC and has said this: likely recommend annual COVID shots, similar to the flu. Director says, and just like that, everything we said in the last 2 years has come true. There's people that have been banned from social media for saying what she just said the other day. There's her with her nice little Fauci muzzle on, talking about this. We anticipate the Rona will become similar flu shots, where it's going to get you your annual flu shot and you get your annual COVID shot. Now, incorporate the digital ID, which is coming out. You got the World Orb, you got the CBDC. You don't get your annual Rona shot and all this other shots, you will not be eating, drinking, boating, driving, you name it. And I guess I'm just crazy for being 99.99% right on all this, but I'm just saying the storm clouds are coming. Now, what else is going on? Ooh, tick bites can make you allergic to meat. What are they trying to do? Oh, yeah, synthetic meats. Oh, we're at the hottest planet in the world, which is not. It's apparently the hottest June in the last 44 years. There's a couple of links I posted on Twitter for that. I may do a clam plant tomorrow on just that right there. But it's not the hottest, and they're trying to kill you they're trying to get you to stop eating meat for the environment. Oh, yeah, forgot. Let me get this guy. Remember that we had this guy on our show a few weeks ago. I almost deleted him just to save some space, but I'm glad I did it.
2 examples. So one is that
this from a couple years ago.
People eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then they would it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy. I can't do it. I'm one of those, by the way. So, so here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about, we have these intolerance to, for example, I have milk intolerance. And some people are intolerant.
Which, if you drink real milk, you don't have that intolerance.
To crayfish. So possibly we can
use
like human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you will become allergic to meat. I don't care. I'll still eat it. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of
human engineering. Remember what's his face has said? Yuval Harari. We're gonna go in. Free will is dead. Well, if you get these jabs in you that you can't eat meat, you're free will in that. Digital idea. All this we're gonna force you. There's actually vaccines on not smoking and things like that. They got all kinds of these things. We've been being experimented on, especially in the last 4 years. But also getting inside, under the skin. They talked about this many times. Just do a Google search. Yuval Harari, under the skin. You'll get plethora of videos on this. This is in the mainstream news. So in case you're going, Steve's completely lost his mind. I lost that a couple years ago. This is in regular news.
We are back 7:39 this morning on In-Depth Today. New health alert is getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, the CDC sounding the alarm over a tick-borne illness that's spreading across the country, and it leads people to develop an allergy to red meat.
Yeah, it's believed to have affected nearly 500,000 Americans so far.
Now, I know of one guy already, that a person that I know of, that has had this happen to him. And he says his wife's looked up some information. It says apparently about 2 years later, you can start incorporating meat again. It's really, it could actually kill you if you end up continuing to do it. Now, it takes about 2 to 6 hours after you eat it to figure out that you even have this, which normal allergies, it's about 20, 30 minutes. This is, you don't even know what you got.
But new studies show nearly half of doctors don't know about it. They don't know how to diagnose it or to treat it. Joining us now is
big red flag there, huh? I mean, ticks have been around for how many thousands of years? All of a sudden, we just heard about this.
Dr. Tara Narula. She's a cardiologist at Lenox Hill Hospital, Northwell Health. Dr. Narula, good to see you. So, first of all, this is very bizarre. When you think about it, you get a tick bite and then you have an allergy to meat. So draw the connection there.
Yeah, who knew? Perfect story right before we're all about to grill over the weekend, right? So this is a really interesting allergy, and really we'll learn more about it in the last 15 years or so, since it was first published in 2008. And in fact, it is a meat allergy, but it's also called an alpha-gal allergy. Alpha-gal because that is the sugar that is found in many meats, cows, pigs, but not in humans. So what happens is the tick carries this alpha-gal in its saliva, either because it produces it or it bites wild animals. Then it bites you, injects the saliva into you. You think it's something foreign because you don't carry that, and you make antibodies. Then 1, 2, 3 months later, you sit down to have your burger or your piece of red meat, and your body sounds the alarm because it's seeing the sugar again, and you mount a full-blown response.
So what would the symptoms be if you're allergic to red meat?
So some of the symptoms can be GI upset, gastrointestinal upset, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach pain, headache, but it can also be full-blown anaphylaxis, itching, hives. But the interesting thing is that with most food allergies, the allergy happens about 15 to 20 minutes after you eat something. So it's very easy to make that connection. With this allergy, it can happen 2 to 10, 11 hours later. So imagine, how would you connect the dots if you wake up in the middle of the night? You're not going to think it's because of something I ate at dinner. So it can definitely fly under the radar, both for doctors and for people. And that's why this
kind of like, what's that other tick-borne virus that they created at Plum Island? Lyme.
Come on,
Lyme. Still no clue
Lyme,
what
Connecticut.
is so important because there is a blood test that can pick it up. You can detect.
By the way, they say it's a blood test. Oh, so you can get your DNA.
The antibodies, and while there's no cure or treatment, if you recognize it and you stop eating red meat.
So you give your blood in there to figure out if you have it or not, but they can't do anything with it afterwards.
The allergy can potentially wane over time as long as you avoid tick bites again.
Well, probably a good time to remind folks how the best ways to protect you.
So all they care about afterwards is just talking about avoiding ticks. Back to this. Why do they care about this? All right, we heard about that. This is back 7 years ago. I believe meat consumption should be illegal and meat vaccination mandatory. House of Representatives orders Pentagram to investigate whether ticks were once used as a biological weapon back in 2019. They still did not answer that question. This is a little thing on Lyme disease at Plum Island. Check it out. Here's where you already saw that. Sorry. U.S. approved chicken made from cultivated cells, nation's first lab-grown meat. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Gates is involved all the fake meats. They're pushing that big time, right? British cows could be given methane blockers that cut climate emissions. Guess who's invested in climate and methane blockers for cows? You guessed it. Cut meat consumption, introduce vaccine passports to cut risk of new viruses. Scientists say back in 2021, fast population of humans and animals. Support. What is it right here? Should meat be banned to save the planet? Wasn't it 15 years from now, meat from animals will be illegal back in 2018. They've been floating this around for a while. Brandon's climate change plan may not nix cheeseburgers, but science says beef should be on the chopping block. I remember was talking about this 2 years ago. This is about the smoke vaccine for smoking, talking about giving it to kids so they don't have to worry about stop smoking. Next, the vaccine to stop eating red meat. This I couldn't get my PDF to come up, so I found another link for this. This is This was a PDF that this article posted up from 2030 and 2050 projects. Now back in the cars, 2030, get rid of cars, get rid of airplanes. They're down to is the one that had Heathrow, Heathrow, and a couple other European ones in England down to 3 airports. And by 2050, none. Same thing we're here with food. 16 kilograms of meat per person per year is 2030, the progressive target. Ambitious target, 0. In 2050, it is 0. It's just literally nothing.
It's too bad today's Friday, because I would totally go smash like 50, wings just in celebration of this. But I guess
the
I'll
whole
have to do
point
that
of it is
tomorrow.
the whole point. I bring that up. This is the 2030 project. You're looking over here. Remember that dog with the hockey pucks? You look. Here's it. Biden over here. Brandon over here. Bush over here. Trump over here. These guys are targeted for 2030 to 2050 project. Oh, here's another guy. I forgot about him. My apologies. Here's from the Club of Rome, not Vatican or anything like that.
That row? What?
In one way or another, we are so far, globally, we are so far above the population and the consumption levels which can be supported by this planet that I know in one way or another it's going to come back down. So I don't hope to avoid that. I hope that it can occur in a civil way, and I mean civil in a special way, peaceful. Peace doesn't mean that everybody's happy, but it means that conflict isn't solved through violence, through force, but rather in other ways. And so that's what I hope for.
Let's talk about depopulating the world.
Hey, Thanos.
Watch some more of it. But you got John Kerry out there talking about ending the Department of Agriculture all over the world. You got other guys all over in different areas talking about we got to stop farming. United Kingdom, there's a guy that literally come out saying we must stop farming now. And just to save the planet. And you go, wait a minute. They're actually pushing back, saying, but that would starve people. Yes, but it's to save the world.
That's
Earthism. The Earthism religion is this whole thing that we've been going for the last couple of years. We're not out of it yet. They're still trying to resurrect the thing. Just wait till you have to have your holy jab again. But no, they're literally going to, instead, we're all focused on this, not all of us on here, but on TV, it's nothing but the Trump TV show, season 2, season 4, whatever you want to do. How many people are talking about this stuff? Literally, how many guys you're getting poisoned by some kind of bioweapon to not eat meat, which is literally their project. We got to kill. How many cows and chickens have been killed in the last couple of years? Just randomly, just up in smoke. Millions. And now they got this little thing that they put into a weaponized tick, blaming climate change, by the way, because this tick's supposed to be just in Texas. But now it starts migrating upwards. And it starts affecting people this way. No, yeah. Calling me crazy that was one big coinky-dink. But no, this is literally in their thing. Stop your cars, stop you doing this, stop you traveling, stop you flying, stop you doing everything, stop eating meat so you can eat these fake foods that they say is better for the environment and easier for the planet and all this other stuff, which is worse for you. While they inject you without you knowing it, they can put in their, edibles, foods, all kinds of things. Who knows what they're spraying in the sky with spark dust? And then bada bing.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely, Steve. Thank you for telling us about President Trump and all of the and your opinion on President Trump on that one. That was fantastic.
He's going to win. I mean, everybody knows he's going to win.
Yeah, he'll win from a jail cell, which will be fantastic.
The selection's going to happen.
But no, it actually rounds it out perfectly with what Fawaz started with and what John talked about now. You actually showing this is the stuff that is going on while we're doing America's Next Top Emperor or whatever the case may be, because especially with the writer's strike, man, there ain't any, and we all know outside of the Barbie Oppenheimer movies, which we can't watch because they're both trash, there's not much entertainment out there. So we got to go back to reality shows, and there's no better reality than politics. And so it's easy to drum this up, especially with the fact that DeSantis has nosedived into complete obscurity. I don't think any one of us had him on our bingo card just completely dropping the ball in every way, shape, or form. I mean, Jonathan, I'll just real quick. Did you expect Ron DeSantis to completely just, drop the ball when he came out in running? Because we all assumed he was going to run. It was the worst kept secret in politics that the guy was going to be in this race, and yet he come out and he looks terrible.
No, I mean, I kept hoping against hope that he was going to stay in Florida and just finish out his at least just finish out his term as governor. You know, he was elected there to serve for 4 years. I would have liked to have seen him serve for his 4 years, you know, and then show us, like, finish something you start, and then, hey, the next go round. How about that? I mean, because look, the one thing that if any of us actually committed to voting for someone and we were halfway enthusiastic about it, I think it would be someone like Vivek, who recognizes that there's not, like, the president can't do everything. Some things just have to be left to other branches and just to other realms of political involvement, or how should I say, social involvement, right? I mean, it's not everything has got to be on the federal political level. And so I don't know. I didn't think that DeSantis was going to bomb that much, but at the same time, I think he stepped out of the arena before his time was up there as governor. So just, you know.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Yeah, I think he got two things happen, and then we'll move on unless anybody wants to jump in with their thoughts on DeSantis. I know this is a little impromptu. One, his wife is desperate to be the vice president, to be the first lady. I mean, she dresses the part. She does. I mean, you can tell she might have been prodding a little bit too much. And this is not a knock on her. She's a wonderful lady. She survived cancer. They got beautiful kids, blah, blah, blah. But you can tell she's dressing for the part. You know, they say dress for the job you want and not the job you have. And secondly, there's a lot of money in the political consulting class, and that money needs to get spent during every single primary season. And so they just find that's why you have like Asia Hutchinson from Arkansas running. Nobody thinks he's going to run, but those political class guys, they got to spend this money and they got to get out there and they got to get these candidates out. Why is Chris Christie? He's not running for anything, but why is he even in the arena for the 9th time? Nobody cares about Chris Christie.
He's not running at all. That's the problem.
No, he doesn't even do a Stairmaster floss.
No, yeah.
I mean, he gets DeSantis gets a lot of good press out of this. Gets running for 2028. Gets some experience in there. He'll be all right for that because he wants to be that top dog next down the road. But it'll be interesting to see what he does in Florida when he goes back as the governor. And he's promised to get rid of CBDC.
Yeah,
really do it. He also promised to do that up in DC too, which no other candidate has said. And this shows you where everyone's brains at. Because somebody says, I'm going to ban CBDC. That'd be, hey, you know what? Everyone's going to be voting for that guy. And no, we don't care. Because is the Trumpster said get rid of CBDC? I ain't heard anything.
Nope.
Yeah. No, Trump doesn't even know what CBDC is. He probably thinks it's like
he
a
does.
cocktail.
Yeah, he does.
Oh, you think he does?
Oh, yeah. This is coming from Mr. You're fired that couldn't get rid of the little Fauci. No, he's in. He's in. I think the only thing that screwed him over is kind of like the whole. You hear the rumors about the what's his face, Watergate. Was the president Watergate during?
You're talking about Nixon.
Nixon.
The whole Vietnam thing. Not wanting to do Vietnam. Watergate. Kennedy having some wet feet. They get him off. Trump did something and probably was getting us out of the Paris Accord, which was great. That was the best move he did that whole time, was getting us out of the Paris Accord. He did that, ticked off the globalist. They're not getting him back in. That's my theory on that, because there's no way he was going to lose back to back. He was doing quote unquote great in everyone's mind. But that Paris thing ticked off the WF and everyone else. Somebody more powerful than Trump lives on this blue orb of ours, and they didn't want him to come back in. You don't get removed. Just kind of like Biden right now. They're bringing out Jill's husband, or ex-husband. Now, where was he at the last election? He wasn't around. They didn't need him for that. Now all of a sudden, Jill's ex-husband in there talking about how bad Brandon was to him and all this. There's something going on in all this. They're going to get rid of Biden just because, I don't know, he's made a couple more.
Oh, they're totally setting up Gavin Newsom. It's Plastic Newsom 2024.
Yeah.
100%.
Nothing's accidental.
They want Newsom, yeah. California is the poster child of how they want the entire country to look.
Yep, it is.
And Newsom is the presider of all that. But let me ask you guys this question. I don't mean to play quarterback here, Rick, but
Go ahead.
I want you to come in this
That's
too.
all right, man. Let's go. We'll option.
Right
I'm
now.
just. Oh, it's R. What is it? R and O or run pass option. Here we go, babe.
I'll throw
Right there.
it, but
RPO.
RPO.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Trump already exonerated for this crime that he's being committed during that? Because he was impeached for it. And who was it? Was it Congress? Was it the Senate that pretty much said he did nothing wrong? So how are you going to try to indict him for something that he is already exonerated for?
So Alan Dershowitz has already come out and said that this stuff is going to get tossed by SCOTUS. He thinks that this stuff has the only reason to do this is so you can lead campaigns to get him stripped off the ballot in certain states.
Okay.
Because he was indicted, right? No matter even if it gets tossed out or whatever, they can still say he was indicted because of that. Especially in blue states, they don't need reasons to do that. They can conjure up, well, he was indicted, so we're going to remove him for the sake of democracy or blah, blah, blah.
Isn't this good for Trump, though? Can he subpoena anybody who wants to in the court legally now?
Well, yeah, I mean, he could. During discovery, yeah, he probably could.
That'd be fun.
It would also depend on if Trump stops hiring 27-year-old attractive brunettes as his lawyers and actually finds. Come on, Trump has a type. Every time there's like a lawyer press release, it's either a blonde or a brunette who is very attractive. And it's just like they could be dumb as rocks, but Trump has a type. He needs to find the ugliest, fattest lawyer he can, one that hasn't seen daylight in 6 years. That's the guy who needs to defend himself.
Well, he had Deborah Birx, and look what that happened. Look how that went up for him.
Yeah, that's right. He also had Giuliani too, but what are you going to do in that regard? So moving off of that impromptu part, but yeah, Trump, this stuff is it's all political games. It's all political games. It's all this attempt to rally enough support to get him removed from the ballot. That's all they're trying to do. That's the end game. And if they even try to put him in prison, he'll get elected in a landslide. He will absolutely, if they manage to put him in prison, which they won't. Because I think that would
in an orange suit. It's going to be great.
Orange man in the orange. That's right. It would be the most popular T-shirt ever.
I hope that stuff. I hope it happens just to make a mockery of this whole situation. But it's made for TV drama.
It is. And speaking of made for TV drama, now that I have an exit, let's move on to our next topic. Andrew Tate has been making the rounds on conservative media lately in an attempt, which, by the way, he just won a release from Romanian court. Now he can actually leave his house. He's on this kind of goodwill tour with conservatives, and he went to Tucker and he went to Candace Owens. And it's very interesting to see how conservatives are fawning over Andrew Tate. Take a listen.
The world, I was a terrible person. They said that I hurt people and I make a lot of money from criminal enterprise, and here we stand 7 or 8 months later and I've not seen a single victim on the news. I don't know if you have. I've seen lots of girls sticking up for me, lots of people defending me. I've not seen a single person stand up and say that I have hurt them, not one. It's very exhausting to continue to perpetuate lies. It's very hard to keep lies afloat when you have no actual evidence. We've been completely innocent since the beginning of this, and I have to give absolute faith to the Romanian judicial system for finally making the right decision and letting us free. I'm sure in the end we'll be absolutely exonerated, and everybody who was pushing these lies and reporting things on repeat without any substantial evidence are going to have to analyze within themselves why they decide to try and destroy people's lives purely for views. I've done nothing wrong. God knows I've done nothing wrong. In my heart, I know I've done nothing wrong. I think the people at home who with a functioning brain understand we've done nothing wrong, because nobody has yet to identify a single victim which is saying that we've done anything to them since the beginning of this entire process. Once again, absolute respect to the judge, respect to Romania, respect to the Romanian judicial system. I look forward to being completely exonerated in due time.
Respect.
Yeah. And so he went on Tucker and he went on Candace Owens, and it was proceeded to be given nothing but softball questions, totally whitewashing his past. And Tate is a very funny figure because there are some that says he did nothing wrong in the past, and the e-girl thing and all this other kind of stuff, and you got to move on. And then there's some that say he's good for the movement because he speaks about masculinity and all these other things that are. It's just the conservatives are getting hoodwinked and bamboozled again because they're falling for a guy who may say one or two things right, kind of like Pearlsy things, whatever you want to call her. She just recites talking points and people fall in love head over heel with her. Oh, she's so based. We're so quick to run and find people that are based and put them into our party. And then 5 months later, we're like, oh, this person's actually not based. They're just kind of stupid and they repeat talking points. It's because we don't have principle. We're too desperate as conservatives or Republicans to be liked, to be in the zeitgeist, to be a part of the whole culture instead of focusing on building our own based on, even Catholic principles and things like Catholic Palooza, which was amazing and a great gathering, and other things that can build culture. We try to pick things from whatever is popular on TikTok, and we are the Steve Buscemi meme where we're like, hey, fellow kiddies, and it's pathetic. It blows up in her face every single time. We've seen it time and time again with celebrities or with musicians. They'll say something remotely kind of like they like it. The Kanye West thing, right? We all fell in love with Kanye West, which, by the way, his Jesus is King album is still pretty ridiculously good. I still listen to it. I still think it's a pretty great album. But people fell head over heels with him. Ice Cube says, like, forget the gatekeepers, and everybody's like, oh my goodness, Steve Shush. I'm gonna mute you. It says forget the gatekeepers, and everybody falls head over heels with that. And it's like, no, that's still Ice Cube, who was talking about, arrest the president during Trump's term. So we're very forgiving or very leeway or whatever the case may be. And John, I want you to start off with the Tate stuff because I know you got to run. So give us your impression of what I've said or your whole thoughts on the Andrew Tate thing.
Well, you're probably right, but you just condemned me to the no, I'm just saying because I caught a few clips of what he was saying to Tucker. I mean, they're probably carefully staged clips and all. But the one thing where I would disagree is I would say that whoever allowed those particular clips onto his interview with Tucker did a really good job. I mean, obviously, Tucker may be trying to win people's attention and get more clicks and all and hits now that he's not on Fox. But he's still got some really talented people who know how to paste things together well, working with him or for him or something like that. Or, I mean, he also seems really intelligent, Tucker does. So he may know how to, set these things up for maximum views and all himself, even though he says that he's a Luddite and never gets on, is on not on any sort of social and doesn't watch movies and stuff like that. But I mean, the way that Tate phrased some of these, pro-masculinity things in that interview were remarkably well phrased. All right. And so as when I reached out to you guys and was saying that, it's kind of scary that it could be so well phrased by someone who seems to have, that sort of background that he does. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it'll just make us all that more attached to the church, which is the only place where you can really be assured of, finding the true, the good, and the beautiful. The only thing is, like, every once in a while, you find the true, the good, and the beautiful, and even sometimes the messenger ends up being a liar. I mean, or worse than simply a liar, as has happened with people in the church throughout, the centuries. There have been folks who have done similarly bad things and yet have somehow said things well, and then we only find out later, about the bad stuff. So, I'll just say there's a reason why he was the most Googled name, a few months ago, whenever it was. He has some gifts. So, I mean, was I maybe a little bit guilty of saying, hey, look, this really talented person is saying some things that actually fit with a decent criticism of the growing effeminate nature of basically all modern media and all the personalities in modern media. Yeah. So I'll just say it's dangerous out there because there are fewer and fewer voices who are just sounding sane. So then you find one who sounds somewhat sane. And, I mean, yeah, same here. I want to hold on for dear life. Hey, this person's sane and he's actually saying something well. And, so yeah, I fell for it. There you go.
I don't think it's falling for it technically. Because we all look at the words and we're like, oh, well, that's great because he's reaching a new audience and this, that, and the other thing. The problem is that audience shouldn't be available to him because parents should be better in that regard to be teaching him these things. But I understand exactly what you're saying. And that's kind of what I brought up Pearl and Kanye and any of these other celebrities, because we're a celebrity focused culture. That's what we look to. Those are our idols. That's where we go. So that's maybe that's a reason why Fwaz, we get so attached to these celebrities when they say something based, because maybe it's a door of relatability parents can use, or maybe they think they can use, or whatever the case may be. And we all, I guess, fall for it. It may, if it's not Andrew Tate, it may be, you can point at me like Kanye. I thought, on my old station, Old Country Show, I was talking about Kanye was fantastic during the Jesus is King album. So it's just, you pick whoever it is. Right, Fwaz?
Yeah. There's certain things that's within man that are instilled. This need to we all know this. It's instinct in us. This need to worship something, but it's also this whole understanding of piety, insofar as there are people that we esteem. You have kings, then there's always been a hierarchy, and celebrities is one of those folks that we put above a lot of folks. I mean, I remember growing up in the late 80s and the early 90s, watching European men faint over Michael Jackson coming on stage. I mean, it was pathetic. But I think there's a need to search for a savior in all aspects. I mean, the Jews did it back in the times of Christ. They're looking for a political savior. They weren't looking for someone to come in and defeat sin and Satan. So I think this need for us to look for a savior, and the conservative movement has taken so many L's the last, 10 years or more, that we're looking for a savior. And also, as far as when it comes to Tate, I will say this: a broken clock can be right two times a day, and that's what Tate is. I think Tate's he knows how to read a room. He's actually a very excellent communicator, pretty smart guy. But one thing about Tate, I don't know if he did anything illegal, as far as what he was doing with the whole OnlyFans stuff. I know what he did was extremely immoral. It was but definitely grounds of mortal sin. I'm concerned for his soul. I think his conversion to Islam came in the exact time where he's going through all of these problems. Islam has a lot of power and influence. It could have gotten him out of the situation he's in right now. I think he's only concerned about himself. Has no other concerns about religion or anything like that. He was criticizing the justice system in Romania 6 months ago when he got arrested, and now he's praising them. So everything about Tate is all about Tate. The same thing with Trump. But the one thing that I think gave Tate that the attention from young men was the fact that the pendulum, well, we had men 100 years ago, and then feminism swung the pendulum completely the other side, and people just got sick and tired of all this feminist stuff. And here comes a guy now swung the pendulum back to the other side, and we live in a vice-filled society because everything is a defect, and I can't think of the other word. So it's defect, and then there's Steve. You got to help me out here. I forgot the word. Anyways, so Tate goes from the other side completely, and you got men who are low testosterone now than ever before, who are looking for a real man as a father figure because father's not around anymore. And here's a guy, excess and defect. And there's one thing that he did that I think made what he calls the Matrix very nervous. The reason why you had the lockdowns, the reason why he had all of these problems in society today, it's because men don't stand up anymore. Nobody has a backbone. Men are just too comfortable. They'll just go on with the status quo as long as you give them their comfortability. My football and my chips and my wings on Sunday. As long as you give them their circus and their bread, they'll continue to follow. Once you get men to come out of that and head to the gym, start lifting heavy weights, start reading, start taking walks and thinking for themselves, start getting on their knees and saying prayers, because that's a very manly thing to do. It's contrary to our fallen nature to do something like that. Tate, on a very basic level, is asking young men to go out and build pecs and shoulders. what that does, it increases the testosterone in men. Next thing you know, now men start building a backbone. So what does that do? It's harder for you to take over society if men act like men. You think the lockdowns would have happened 100 years ago with men? No way. Nobody would have shut down their business. They would have said, get out of here. So, because nowadays, we're cowards. Men are cowards. So that's why I think they're trying to shut him up for that reason. He's become very popular. He's on every TikTok short. He's on every YouTube short. If you flip up, you'll see Tate 100 times an hour. And then the young men are resonating to that. And they got to put pieces against him. So in that sense, I like Tate's message because there's a basic understanding of manhood. It's more primal. It's not spiritual. But other than that, I personally think if you take out the facade of the outward Tate masculinity, he's actually very effeminate. Because if you can control yourself and your finances and your eating habits and your working out and you have self-mastery there, but you don't have self-mastery when it comes to lust, you're not really a man, are you? There's no interior discipline. It's just outwardly manhood, just like, smoking a cigar and growing a beard. It's just outwardly stuff. There's nothing interior. So that's pretty much what I got to say about Tate, but all power to him.
Yeah. It's a very good approach as well, Fawaz. Steve, what's your thoughts? Are you more aligned with my opinion or are you more aligned with Fawaz and John's opinion?
I honestly had no clue who Andrew Tate was until maybe all this went down. I never saw a video. I remember seeing a Whitlock post about it going up, and I'm going, what is he talking? What is this? Why is this important? Who is this guy? I just clicked on the video just when I was putting some videos together to have something in the background when I was trying to. This is when I'm doing stuff. I got a player is playing in front of me. If I'm putting links together, so I'm watching and listening. I can do 15 things at one time, it seems. So there was nothing else to listen to, so I put that on. And first time I heard of the guy, actually. So I was blown away that this was even happening. I kind of I think Whitlock brought this up. No, somebody else did. No, it was who's the former ball player that's on this show or swapped in?
There's the Mizzou kid.
No, the big dude, NBA.
Royce.
Royce. He brought it up going, why are they going after him so much now? And it's kind of like, the whole Epstein thing. No one cared about that. All of a sudden, they're caring about this Tate thing. Did the same thing. Does he owe somebody money? Did he screw up the mob? There's something else going on that he's pretty much was making big bucks off trafficking when the Epstein thing is kind of like that meme. Hey, you heard about the aliens? I don't care. Where's the Epstein list? Where's that stuff? Tate. Okay, I don't care. Where's the Epstein thing? But it's just, that whole situation is, there's, as what Fawaz was saying, there's a void and something's going to come into that void. And it's either going to be the good or going to be the bad. And in this sense, he's kind of like a wolf in sheep clothing in a sense, because he was telling people what they like to hear, tickle their ears a little bit, was attractive to people. Antichrist-like in the sense. And then underneath, he was a ravenous wolf that was, as Fawaz was bringing up, talking about the vice that could be settled in there. Nothing good. I mean, the only way I could say anybody wants to learn more about it is to check out the Milk Bar TV and where'd it go up here? Somewhere up here. Was this it right here? Yeah, Milk Bar TV. He did a couple of videos showing and comparing and contrasting what he was saying in his interviews to what he said in the past. That's basically all I can go on that, because like I said, I have zero clue who this guy was. Now, bigger picture is all this with the AI and the TikTok. You got these girls on there making these weird noises, like the
NPCs, right? Ice cream so good. Ice cream so good.
Yeah, whatever. And now they got AI porn. So now you don't even have real women or real people in there at all, which that's a good thing, but it's still evil because it's the passions that you're from a computer image is now being used. So the guy who's watching is still a real person. And I'm under the understanding that this stuff is really, really well done. And it's going to bring down a lot of guys with the AI stuff that's coming down with the videos. I mean, the Hollywood thing we talked about last time about why they're protesting because they're going to use their images. Well, what if someone's favorite, what if the J-Lo image is now thrown into some, porn video? Just like that whole Brandon Coffee thing. The deep fake videos are going to be out. You're not going to be able to figure out what's real and what's fake. And oh man, it's just getting berserk out there to this. I don't know as Jonathan said something about the church. I don't know what the church has to come out and do something to call out this. Words, I don't know. I'm at loss for words on a lot of this stuff. I mean, from the beginning of the story, from what I brought up, there's people literally talking about killing 90% of the population of the world. And then there's other people talking about trying to corrupt 90% of the population of the world. And at what point do you go, well, Hitler, Stalin, and Mao Zedong are going to look like kindergartners compared to what these guys are wanting to do to the rest of the planet? How do we stop that from happening? How do we stop this from happening? How do we? It's almost like, in a sense, we have to play defense, but we got to be way more offensive in the sense, too, of getting out in front of this and teaching the good, the true, the beautiful, instead of continuing I know we're talking about the bad stuff here, but repeated stuff all over, mixing the good. A friend of mine's doing this conference, and one of the guys wanted to come on, wants to talk about how bad the bishops are. She goes, "What do you think?"
Is Starbucks going to be sponsoring the conference?
Yeah, it's like, we can't say no to Starbucks. We're men. We can't say no to Starbucks.
No, Bud Light will be this.
But it's just, you're going to the conference to speak about how crappy. There's plenty of the videos out there about how crappy it is, how bad it is, how bad. Like the Eucharist Congress, the weird stuff going on World Youth Day and all that. There's plenty of stuff. How do we change that? Well, we gotta love more. We gotta get more excited than they are about pushing the weird, bad stuff. We gotta be pushing the good, the true, the beautiful way more, instead of just saying, "Oh, that guy stinks. That guy stinks. That guy stinks. Oh, this is terrible." It is bad, but
yeah, I'm so done with, and I'm really done with any commentator that's entire channel philosophy is on how crappy the church is. I'm just really tired of it. Okay. We are all Catholics. We're part of the universal church. No, I mean, like, literally making video after video about, this is bad, that's bad. It's this. Come on, man. Just let it go for a minute. Right. We're all Catholics. We're all supposed to be. Do you believe the Apostles' Creed or not? Because if you don't believe the Apostles' Creed, where it says, "I believe in one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church," then don't go to church. Don't say that on Sunday and then make 6 videos this week about how crappy the church is because of World Youth Day. Okay, we are not the only Catholics in history that have had to deal with bad popes or bad bishops or whatever the wanky stuff that's happening. So stop making money off of the misery that the church is happening right now. Sorry,
I didn't know about this. I heard it from a Father Abernathy video that I put together. That all right, you talk about all these past events that they have. They make these weird they're not weird altars, but they look cheap. It's like IKEA put the altar up and all this. I never heard about the ones that Soldier Field had and Forbes Field had back in the 30s and 40s. And I just Google those. They made those right off the bat, gigantic baldaquinos. They put on the football field, and tens of thousands of dudes were there. I'm going, well, what if someone makes a blog about that? Let's compare and contrast, but show the kind of like the book Ugly as Sin. I thought it was a fantastic book. I love that book because it's hysterically sad, but it brings out it shows how good and beautiful we were, that how we could get back to. If you just show somebody, hey man, why don't we try? And there's movements like what the architecture guys are building these new parishes in the upstate South Carolina, down in Low Country South Carolina. Kentucky had a couple go. They're building good ones again. They're getting away from the 7-Elevens, but it's still all right. Well, how do you fix it? It's just, hey, you suck. That doesn't evangelize anybody.
Yep, it doesn't. Not in any way, shape, or form. And You know, I get that there is some credit to places like the Lepanto Center and other that are exposing things like Catholic Charities. I'm not talking about that, right? There is like you want to know that because you don't want to donate to those places. Completely fine with that. But there are some people that are just wrapping themselves in misery all the time, and so that makes me a little frustrated in that regard. Because Steve, we should be doing that. We're not. You know what happens with all of that is we're not uniting. We're not locking arms. Because the rest of the world hates us. The rest of the world wants us destroyed. The rest of the world wants us doing exactly this. And so, I wish more people followed.
You're not going to see anybody doing a podcast on, well, actually, I'm going to do one tomorrow, probably. I'm supposed to do it today, on Francis talking about silence. I was already planning on doing one anyways, but then he said that. I'm going, ain't nobody going to talk about that. That's perfect. That's exactly. You read that book that Cardinal Sarab put together and read the Eastern Fathers, and you'll see exactly what he said in that clip. But no one's going to talk about that because it's not. That doesn't mean
you can't get 10,000. So anyway, we're kind of off course on this one, and I don't want to snap. I don't want to make it sound like I'm going after anybody personally. I just don't think that much is done with the volume of people who are. Also, it doesn't look good for us as Catholics when we have our own trashing the church. You know, I mean, it gives the enemy too much.
Us.
It gives the enemy too much fuel. It gives the enemy too much fuel because they're like, oh, well, this guy hates it too. It's like, all right, whatever, man. Anyway.
Yeah. And you're not as traditional as I am because you don't attack the Pope.
Yes, that's well. I mean, I've been dealing with that for years. That I'm not trad enough. I've actually been told that by somebody.
What does that even mean anymore? Somebody needs to define what trad is because it's gotten out of hand.
Yeah, it's dumb. But Steve gave me a perfect out with the downgrade, and he mentioned that it kind of went over my head. Other downgrades this week.
That's not that hard to do.
Yeah, it's yeah. Well, you know what, my man? Proud feet. I'm feeling a little more Sam Wise. Feeling a little more Sam today, and a little less Gimli. So I'll let it fly. Anyway, speaking of things flying over my head and things getting downgraded and things getting smaller, the U.S. credit rating has been downgraded from AAA to what? AA, and yeah, I mean. Why not? Everything else is going to hell.
I want to bring you this breaking news. Fitch has downgraded the U.S. credit rating to a AA from a AAA. They note the difference in governance between AA-rated countries versus AAA-rated countries. Also, the continuous or the many political showdown surrounding the debt limit. We knew when the debt limit showdown was going on that Fitch was considering this downgrade, even if the debt limit was not breached. And so here we are with a downgrade of the U.S. credit rating to a AA+.
Term we're very proud of, I must tell you, because Bidenomics is working.
In recent weeks, Joe Biden has been pushing his disastrous economic agenda called Bidenomics. But what is Bidenomics? Well, here's a preview.
Let's be clear about what Bidenomics really is. I mean, the economic plans out of this administration have been very clear. Spending, regulation, and higher taxes. That's what Bidenomics is.
And thanks to Joe Biden's war on American energy, in 2022, Americans paid the highest gas prices ever, over $5 a gallon. In fact, Joe Biden has set a lot of records, like 40-year record high inflation, like 26 months of collapsing real wages, the longest streak on record. And thanks to Bidenomics, hardworking Americans now owe nearly $1 trillion in credit card debt, an all-time record high.
The cost of housing, shelter up 5.5% in 1 year. Electricity up 13.5%. Natural gas up almost 40%. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner is more expensive. Food up 10.5%.
Bidenomics means 1/3 of Gen Z and millennials have absolutely zero savings. Nothing. But it wasn't always like this. In fact, Joe Biden inherited a booming, robust economy from President Donald J. Trump.
Remember, Mr. Biden inherited a 6.5% growth rate with roughly 1.5% inflation from his predecessor, Donald Trump. Essentially, Biden's big government socialism has turned a booming economy into a bust.
Under President Trump, wages were up, unemployment hit historic lows, and on his last day in office, gasoline was only $2.39 a gallon. President Trump created 7 million new jobs, triple the projections, leading to the lowest unemployment rate in nearly 50 years.
Steve's voting for.
The Trump economy lifted 7 million people off of food stamps and achieved a record high stock market and record 401ks. Under President Trump, unemployment rates for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, Native Americans, women, veterans, individuals with disabilities, and those without a high school diploma all reached record lows.
How come there's not like a high school diploma Americans? Muted Americans.
What does it even mean? Like, I mean, I guess I'm not really doing well. I'm not representing high school diplomas, but
Italian, Asian, African Americans.
It's crazy that, as Steve talked about earlier, the CBDC, the setup. Obviously, we know what what Steve's approval or his approach will be with the Bidenomics, but the fact of the matter is, Fwaz, we're seeing the everything being stretched. I mean, you know, hopefully it would make people more reliant and more self-sufficient, but at the same time, there's two ways out of this. What I just said, reliance and self-sufficiency, or what's the other way, Fwaz? Which is what the powers that be hope for.
Oh, I didn't know it was going to be a pop quiz today.
Oh, it was just government dependency.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It was not a really well phrased question.
My
so
bad.
don't worry about that.
No, I mean that's the if you look at even from George Bush to Obama to Biden now, it's just a continuation of the what we call the deep state's understanding of economics. Joe Biden actually wants to be the modern day FDR. That's why he's spending all of this money, because he wants to be known. You know, if you look back in history, he wants to be the new civil rights guy who gave the LBG and the BLM and all of these. The infrastructure deal with Trump was going to strike anyways, but you know they struck it down against him. When it comes to economics, it's not that complicated in how to get this country to where it needs to be. The middle class runs the country. When you destroy the middle class, and it's been a controlled demolition when it comes to the middle class, they want a class of ultra elite, super rich folks, corporatists who are buying politicians, and those guys want to monopolize on those businesses. We saw the greatest transfer of wealth in history during COVID, $3 trillion going from the little person to the big person, because science said that Lowe's could stay open, but your little restaurant or your little mom's and pop shop couldn't. That's science for you, and we bought that. That was the biggest transfer. Biden, of course, comes in and does everything the opposite of what Trump was trying to do. I mean, when I say opposite, Trump also spent a lot of money. But what happened with Trump is there was so much revenue coming through the federal tax because everybody was working. You can offset some of that spending with the income. Like, for example, it's no different than my household. You know, if I get an increase of, for example, an extra $2,000 a month in revenue, my spending is going to increase in proportion to that. You know, I'm not just going to sit on it and do nothing. But what happened with Biden is we went through COVID. We printed a whole bunch of money, which caused a lot of inflation. They didn't let Powell raise the interest rates too high because they didn't want to freak people out, which caused more inflation. And now here we are with the highest inflation. When they say inflation is going down, to me, it's not going down until you get 2019 to 2018 type of inflation numbers. You got to bring it down to that, which they never will. Inflation is one of the easiest way to tax the middle class with getting away from it, because the rich don't feel it. So, they're screwing the little guy, and this is a controlled way for you to diminish the dollar, because the U.S. has to fall in order for you to bring in globalism, in order for you to bring in all the stuff that Steve talks about. The U.S. cannot still be in power. You cannot still have the dollar as the official currency. You have to break it down, and then you got to say, I got to go ahead and we got to give all of our power, all of our delegate it over to the WEF. We all have to come together as one global elite, and you guys in the bottom, we'll give you the universal basic income, and so, but it's a controlled demolition. I think this is what Bidenomics really is. If you really think about it, it's a transition over, because he did say, don't forget, he said he wants to transition an economy, and what is he transitioning to? The stuff that Steve talks about, WEF, the CDB, whatever stuff that Steve talks about. That's what we're transitioning to, and Biden is the gateway.
100% there, Steve. Your thoughts on the Bidenomics working as planned?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, what is it? Every day they give out 100 million, 400 million, 500 million to Ukraine. I mean, every time you go around, every time you blink, we just gave another billion to Ukraine. What do you think's going to happen when you spend, give away, and all that? And then what do you think the creditors are going to do? Come in there, you're going to get downgraded. So yeah, this wasn't accidental. Everything's, like I said, everything's planned out. There's a reason for the madness. They talk about that in the reset, COVID-19 Great Reset. Talk about the economics, global geopolitics, who's going to be the new powerhouses, China, Russia, U.S., all that stuff. That'd be good. Maybe we need a butt kicking and needs a little water slapped on the face to be able to go. Because again, every time I see someone complain about this, that, or the other, I go, well, divorce DC. But how you end the CBDC from the federal level? Divorce DC. You got the how you get rid of Pelosi and all these other nutters out there? Well, you get away. You break off. It's not keeping the door. Hey, let's vote harder next time. But it's a mindset no one's ever going to do it. I mean, maybe we will. Maybe the whole Trump thing when he wins. Maybe Cali, Oregon, and Washington will break off. I can only hope. Hope springs eternal. That would be nice. But yeah, it's what you got to do is, all right, you see the plans coming down, you see these storm clouds coming. What are you going to do about it? Just like with the food thing. I mean, food shortage, getting hot, getting more expensive. I got a garden out back. I never thought in a million years I'd ever have. But why?
Can't confirm, because Steve sends me videos of it every day, which I'm very
impressed. I said it once. You told me like that. Maybe
Feels
twice.
like every day.
And but anyways, no, seriously. What if I was telling everyone about all this stuff and then I got caught with my pants down? Talk about being laughed at. I mean, like, wow, this guy wasn't prepared for it. Talking about it all the time. No, if these things work and grow, I got perennials out there to be there for the rest of time, as long as I keep watering and keep it, do the basics with it. So how do you beat some of this stuff when the food you might not be able to buy it because of UBI or the UBI will come, but if you can't spend it on X, Y, Z because of digital ID and all that, how do you beat that system? Well, become more self-sufficient. How you beat the attack on meats? Get some community together and have somebody some cows and another person with some chickens, and you everyone back each other up, defend each other, things like that. It's community. Now the downside is it'd be easier if you were all for a Catholic community like John Senior talked about, like we mentioned before in past episodes, but we don't have that, so we have to work a little bit harder for that, or move to an area like that, which is going to be hard because house prices are extremely high. You're not going to be able to sell. So, make do what you got right now. About a rental, I can only do so much. I can work with about 4 feet of space, and about 4 by 25 or 4 by 30. So I'm going to, use as much space as I can to do something with it. And I could either sit back and complain like I used to do, going, man, I can't do anything with it. I can't grow, can't do nothing, but trying my best to grow beans and onions and fruits and all kinds of sorts like that. And it's easy. Apparently, it's easy to do. I mean, if a moron like me can figure this out, I think anybody watching can do it. So it's just the willpower to go do it. It's one way to beat this. You see all this stuff going down. Okay, prepare yourself so you're not, when it does hit, that you're not, what am I going to do? You have a plan. You've been doing something. You've been trying it out. You've been working on it for at least a year or so. So that, who knows? By the end of the year, they may force a jab. I've heard rumors like that. I don't know, but if they did, what are you going to do about it? So start preparing now for it and get a plan together.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I mean, there are multiple ways. We all know I've been talking about my growing of quail, and if I can grow and keep quail alive and eat, the eggs and the meat and all that stuff, pretty much anybody can.
Don't they
So
fly away though, Rick?
yes, well, when you free range them like an idiot, they can. Luckily, I am not an idiot, despite the fact that some people do.
Popular opinion.
Despite the fact of popular opinion, and there is many a day when I reinforce said opinion, but free ranging quail is not one of them.
I got an email the other day saying that you're an idiot. You must be talking for Rick. Yes, I was. I'll send it there.
What can I say? We all have to have our specialties. We all have to have our specialties, and we all have to be proud of what we're good at. Speaking of which, it's time for the Saint of the Week and the Cry Room. So we're going to go first to Fawaz, Saint of the Week, and then the Cry Room.
Well, Saint of the Week, I'm going to go with St. Alphonsus because wasn't his feast day a couple days ago? Yeah, I believe so.
The second.
The greatest moral doctor of the church, the moral doctor of the church. I enjoy his writings. He's helped me run the confession more than any other person. So absolutely St. Alphonsus. But the other saint of the week, I would say this, is my one of our associate pastors, Father Dolan, which if you guys mind to take 1 minute he came over yesterday and with the family, and my wife and I and my family started a 9-day novena, which ended yesterday. Perfect timing because we ended up enthroning our entire family to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. I did not know that this enthronement was going to be this powerful because we had gone through absolute hell, going to the emergency rooms and viruses and tooth infections and car troubles just in the last 9 days, preparing for the Sacred Heart. And so our Lord promises 12 things, and I'm just going to go quickly with them. He says, I will give them the necessary graces. 2, will be their secure refuge during life and above all death. Lukewarm souls shall become fervent. I will give the priests the gift of touching most hardened hearts. I will establish peace in their homes. I will bestow abundant blessing upon their undertakings. Fervent souls shall quickly become high in perfection. Those who shall promote the devotion shall have their names written in my heart. I will comfort them in all their afflictions. Sinners will find in my heart a source of infinite ocean of mercy. I will bless every piece in which the image of heart is exposed and honored. And number 12, I will grant final perseverance to those who receive Holy Communion on the first Fridays in 9 consecutive months. So if you can, get your family and throw it to the Sacred Heart. Put it all on Jesus, and then he'll take care of your family. So we did that. My cry room is going to be, and I hate to do this, but I'm going to because I'm not happy with it. I'm very much in support of all the Catholic artists, all the Catholic rappers, because I really want to bring their talent and their music out as much as I can, with every capacity that I can, and try to promote them. But there is this one Catholic rapper. He's been doing it for a long time. Very, very modern his approach. I don't really enjoy his music. I don't think he's a great rapper to begin with. His name is Joe Melendrez. And he was, I've talked to him about this before. He was doing his little song and dance and his little gimmick that he does, his self-promotion of himself, dancing in front of the tabernacle and performing inside of a church. After him and I went back and forth in the comments, he took it out, was invited to World Youth Day, and he did it again, dancing and parading in front of the tabernacle. It seems to me like he's promoting himself, will do anything for a check, and I'm putting him in the choir room.
That is very appropriate for the cry room. And indeed, we don't want to see our brothers do that, but it is also our job to rebuke if we must. So you gotta do what you gotta do. Steve, Saint of the Week and Cry Room.
Yeah, man, it's that World Youth. I'm glad. I can't wait for that thing to be over with. Mira was like, "Oh, how many hundreds of thousands show up?" Well, do we really care about the numbers part? I mean, it's just like the Meju Beet Juice. Oh, there's thousands go, or Steubenville. Oh, thousands go. And like, okay, well, how many stick around afterwards? Stop.
Yeah, right.
Let's make it. But anyway, sorry. Cry Room. I'm gonna go with the incandescent light bulbs got banned the other day, so we could throw that in. But I saw this too. I mean, apparently they're trying to get some heifers from Texas. The Israel Red Heifer Project. were to be used for a purification ritual for the Third Temple. It wants to build over the ruins of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in occupied Jerusalem. If you laugh, not to cry. And
sure.
You laugh not to cry about some of the things. Hey, we need the Antichrist to come. Let's hurry up and get this temple going. If Saint of the Week is whoever banned Leah Thomas. I don't know if anybody heard about that. He was banned. Poor Leah. He went from the greatest women's swimmer in the history of the world to the mediocre male swimmer he is. He got banned from participating in women's sports. And so whoever did that, buy that man a Bud Light.
Indeed. Well said. It's that whole thing. It's just whatever. I don't even want to talk about trans athletes at this point. But good. I'm glad to see that he is no longer there. Now, my saint of the week are the brave Catholics, the right-wing Catholics. This just broke before we started our show. A bunch of right-wing Catholics broke up an LGBT MAP mass at World Youth Day, and National Catholic Reporter is losing their minds about it. So that makes you guys my saints of the week just by default, because that's how that goes. Yes, they broke it. They chant, and the greatest thing is they chanted the repentance prayer. They didn't do anything else. It's not like they said mean things or slurs or anything. They walked in and they chanted the repentance prayer. So not only were they respectful Catholics, but they were Catholics trying to help save the souls of all those people who were being led astray. And I know I just did like a 15-minute diatribe on it, but this is a little bit more. I'm trying to silo this a little bit more. I'm talking about the context of one mass, which is not a great idea. Yes, trad protesters protest LGBT mass. There should not be an LGBT mass. There shouldn't be a trad mass. There shouldn't be any. It should be the mass, and it should be focused on our Lord and Savior. So good for these guys, and you guys are my saints of the week there. My cry room goes out to a special agency that I love and is probably watching right now. From CWC Chicago, a federal agent, an ATF agent, was robbed at gunpoint on the Magnificent Mile in Chicago overnight. No word on yet if it was MAGA country or not, but there's at least one firearm in Chicago that's actually registered with matching ammo. Great job. You want to have a gun-free zone? You want to increase lawlessness in that city? Don't be surprised when your federal agents get jacked and they can't do anything about it. So you're in my cry room, ATF, permanently in my cry room, but at least in this regard, you are there too. All right, folks, that's it. You got an extended news from the pew this week. You're very lucky and you're welcome. If you like the program, like, subscribe, share the news from the pew. We'll talk to you all next week. God bless and Viva Cristo Rey.